you would have all got a prompt on your screen telling you that this session is being recorded and seeking your consent for that. The purpose behind that is to be able to share whatever we learned from today's discussion with as many students, teachers, parents, and curious adults who might be interested in this topic. And I hope that you will give your consent for this meeting to be recorded. Having said that, I'll just quickly introduce myself and what we are trying to do here at Via News Didi. As I was saying, my name is Asmita and I'm the founder of Via News Didi. We started this in 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, primarily because I myself as an adult was struggling to read the news that was full of violence at the time, that was full of, my WhatsApp was full of false forwards about crazy COVID cures and so on. And I realized that my students were receiving the same information. And given that I was struggling to sift the truth from false information, I figured that maybe my students are too. And that's really why we started Via News Didi, to help students become responsible consumers and creators of media. And that's actually why we're having this discussion as well. And I'm very, very grateful to see so many of you interested in this conversation and taking it forward. Without further ado, because we have a very, very interesting discussion topic and some very, very incredible panelists leading this discussion, I think we should get straight to it. For that, I'm going to quickly invite the moderator for today. And it's really a privilege to invite Sukriti, who's going to be today's moderator, who is also the director of programs at Via News Didi and is instrumental in putting out that newsletter that I'm hoping you have all subscribed to and received shortly this morning. If not, we'll share a link in the chat and I'm going to invite you all to subscribe to the newsletter. That's absolutely free of cost. The idea behind that is to give you a solutions-focused view on what's happening in the world. And Sukriti really is the force behind that newsletter reaching all of your inboxes every Sunday morning, and so much more that we do at Via News Didi. She has been instrumental in building this with me, and it is my privilege and honor to invite her to moderate today's discussion. Sukriti, over to you.
Thank you for those exceptionally kind words. Hello, everybody. As you've heard from Asmita, my name is Sukriti. I'm going to be moderating the discussion today. Big word for basically, I'm going to be asking these panelists questions that we've prepared for them and questions that you would like to hear from them as well. So before we get started, I'm going to quickly introduce the panelists to you one by one, and then they're going to present their opening statements to you, which is just their views on the topic and why they're here. So let me start. Tanay is the data editor at Mint newspaper. He leads the team that produces data-driven journalism. As Asmita and I like to fondly say, we trouble Tanay for everything journalism related, and he never fails to disappoint. Tanay, we are so very happy we could have you here today.
Thanks for having me.
Neera Majumdar. Neera is the editorial lead at CEEW, which is one of India's top climate and energy, one of India's top think tanks, which focuses on energy finance, climate change, and sustainability. We've had the privilege of working with Neera for a previous edition of our Reimagining Media program. And Neera, I would say it's my pleasure to be able to welcome you back to another room full of kids who are eager to ask you questions. Thank you so much for joining us today. Vaidehi is, as her words say, an enthusiastic study lover by day and an author by night. She loves to dance, draw, write, swim, and do internships. She has done 2 internships with us at Via News Didi, and we have now welcomed her back as a student reporter for the newsletter. So Vaidehi, very happy to have you here with us today. Prakash is an 11th grader at Nanak Mata Public School, Uttarakhand. He's a student journalist and filmmaker. He's worked with Pari and with the Village Square Foundation and has made some phenomenal documentary films which have been selected for the Patna and Udaipur film festivals. Prakash, we're so happy that you accepted our invitation to be a panelist, and we can't wait to see what you have to say about student journalism. Grace, ma'am. Grace has a master's degree in English from Delhi University. She currently works as the coordinator of catechetics, values, and social justice education at St. Columbus School, New Delhi. Grace, ma'am, has been with us since we piloted the Reimagining Media program when we ran it for the very first time, and we're so happy that you could be here to tell students, adults, journalists, and educators alike about the power that student journalism has. And finally, Afira is an IB middle years and diploma program educator who's been teaching at the Aga Khan Academy for the last 5 years. She's run multiple extracurricular programs at the school, such as the Model United Nations student leadership projects and the climate change movement that her DP students have led. Afira enjoys reading up on big history, frequenting local monuments, and reading books on history, global politics, and anthropology. So happy to have you here today with us, Afira. You've heard my introductions of them, but I'm going to let them one by one tell you why they're here today. I'm going to start with the youngest one on this panelist, as we always do, and by default for a very long time, that's been Vaidehi. So Vaidehi, over to you.
Then we'll have nothing left to say.
Yeah, Vaidehi, please do leave something for everyone else to say, okay? Just disclaimer there.
So do I have to say my opening statement?
That's
Okay.
right. This is where your opening statement comes in.
So I'm answering the question, should students be journalists? And my answer is, of course, yes. Here is why. According to me, journalism's primary purpose is to dig into the truth and reveal it to society. The bigger picture of student journalism is that students can change people's mindsets through their journalism because students have that ability to think in a way that solutions overshadow the problems. And by changing people's mindset, we can create a better and safer world. Students can learn how to do this through journalism, as well as imbibe various skills such as good writing, communication, research ability, critical analysis, and interpersonal and social skills. They can also install values in themselves such as commitment, honesty, respect, and integrity. Students who practice journalism at school and in college become the voices of other students. They can express their problems and the possible solutions to the same. Student journalism is a perfect medium to provide vital data about the issues and needs of young people. Hence, I think student journalism is really important. And of course, students should be journalists. Thank you.
I am very, very happy that Vaidehi said that, but also really, really sorry to all the panelists that have to follow her because I feel like she's left nothing for you to say. But on that note, Tanay, why don't you go ahead first?
Yeah, thanks. Should students be journalists? That's right, the topic. Yeah. So yes, of course. That's why we are doing this panel. But I think there are three reasons, three aspects to this. One is students themselves. So as Vaidehi also said, it gives a lot of skills like, say, critical thinking, being able to question, and being able to ask the right questions with no bias. So when a lot of journalists, when they start their careers in their 20s, they already have a strong view of the world. So it can color their thinking in a way that can impact the objectivity and fairness of their reporting, which won't be the case if you start much earlier. So that's how it could, I think, impact students themselves. Then there's family. In today's age of fake news, students have a much greater role to play in countering fake news narratives, which maybe their parents at home or families can maybe getting, and they might not have the digital literacy to be able to figure out what's the truth. And children can play a big role in that. So that awareness is important. And of course, community. When students can report on issues about their community, it can actually bring about more awareness and highlight those issues, which mainstream publications may not be interested in because it does not get them the ads or the business required, which children can do much better in bringing out those issues. So yes, so those are the three strands which I feel make student journalism an important part of how we should think of journalism moving ahead. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Tanay. I'm going to move to an educator next based on this random order that I have now chanced upon. So, Afida, why don't you tell us why students should be journalists?
We can't hear.
Hi. This was, I guess, grade 7th when I, for the first time, was asked to write a report on, I guess, this was sports day. And we were given a structure that this is what you need to do. And this has to be submitted to the principal at that point. And I wrote the piece, and then there was this very strong bias I had for my house. I made them look like, I don't know, they were celebrities that day. And I remember my principal having a conversation with me, Afira, this is actually what happened, and this is something that you have added. And as a young person, I couldn't understand what's the difference. I mean, so what I'm trying to say is kids love to write. Kids love having their voice. And they have, I mean, when you come to a classroom in any school, in any part of the world, their opinion, it matters the most. So what journalism or any kind of writing does, it gives them that voice that, yes, you are ready to explore the world around you. But I do have a concern. I mean, the world around you in my time maybe was sports news, or maybe whatever was happening in the school, a couple of things to do with, okay, maybe maximum environment. But today the world is very different. When we talk to a child, the amount of information they have, it's different than what we ever could even imagine. So then we come back to the question, should students or children, should they be journalists? So the aim here, before we give them that agency and voice, the aim is to create a safe environment for them where they will be able to share those answers or their reports or their newsletters, website, blogs, etc. So I guess it's a great idea to give a child the opportunity to be a journalist, but at the same time, teachers, parents, and adults have to learn one thing, that they will come with very incredible questions, and those questions might shake some of us. And no matter what, we have to create an environment of security and safety so that allows them to probe further, right? As Tane is saying that maybe when adults become journalists, they already have a bias, they already have seen the world in a way. And kids have just started exploring. So there might be a time they ask a question or they write about something which is taken as something that they should not even sort of like probe or even inquire. But then there's always a solution too, that yes, the child maybe can explore that topic if you give them enough maybe tools when it comes to media literacy or as well as information literacy. Maybe you can ask them to read further. Maybe you can ask them to verbally share in a small, I guess, like at home, at dinner table. That's what I tell my kids. Have a conversation at dinner table, then we'll see. So going back to the question, I would like to conclude that yes, it's a great idea to teach kids to be journalists, but letting them be on their own, I guess that's not the solution.
Yeah, I love the insight that you brought into that response. And I think, Prakash, we're going to go to you next. Do you think students should be journalists?
Yeah, so I'm Prakash, and I think yes, because of some basic skills which can't be provided in the institutions or the education institution, I think that's why we need to be a journalist. We students need to be a journalist, and I think we can learn it by working in ground. These skills which journalism provides, and students should journalists because to connect it with their community, to know our surrounding better, and to use examples from our surrounding also in the academic learning. As a student, I observe that in the classroom we are living with the abstract ideas, like we are taking example from the USA, from the World War, Japan, and we are knowing it more than our surroundings. So I think it will create confidence if the students will be able to deal with their community and engage in learning practically. I think journalism also leads to students to learn practically by engage with physically attention what is happening in around. And yeah, this is my opinion about.
Thank you for that, Prakash. I'm going to go over to you, Neera. Do you think students should be journalists?
Hi, can you hear me? Sorry. Hi, I think students are naturally curious, right? When we are children, we all ask why this, what is that? And it's only natural to make that a passion in your life or make that a career choice in your life, right? It's also that the journalists write the first draft of history. And it's very responsible if you think of yourself as that way and you nurture that curiosity. You are, in a sense, writing the first draft of history. You are being aware of your surroundings. You're talking to your friends and family in an informed manner. And it only helps if you keep asking, yes, so what? I was naturally very curious as a child, and I would constantly say, if someone told me something, I would constantly ask, okay, how did you know that? Like, what makes you say that? And it's endlessly annoying to adults, but it's exactly what we should do as children. And if you're a journalist, that question should be there. And I think children are the best. Like, you start off with such a curious mind that even though it's annoying, and annoying is a good quality, it doesn't have to be a bad quality at all, that you're as endlessly curious and keep asking questions. A lot in the Indian media does not cover what a child naturally sees around her, right? So when you're a student journalist, you're not only asking the bigger questions, you're asking the smaller question. Hey, what happened to the tree outside my house? Hey, why is that child not coming up to school anymore? So yeah, students should need to become journalists, and even if they don't become journalists, they need to start questioning and keep it, that must be nurtured and not silenced. And even if you're not a journalist, just question the journalists. Ask about what you're reading around you. Ask about what is being said to you. You don't need to be a journalist for that. But it will help if you make that your career. It's not a scary place.
Thank you for that, Neera. And last but definitely not the least, Grace ma'am, do you think students should be journalists?
Yeah, hello. Yes, I don't know what to say now. Much of the ground has been covered, but I would just say, as an educator, I have seen that educators and parents, we are very many times unaware of what is happening to our students, what is happening to our children, their problems, their feelings, their emotions. And so, what journalism does to them is give them that space where they can speak up for themselves. And I think many of you have already pointed that out. And I think many of you have also pointed out how students, and we are seeing it here, students are so much interested in journalism. So this question, should students be journalists? I think it's answered here just by being here. We know that, and I've seen it with my own students. They are so much interested, as I was interested when I was a student. And what it does to students, I feel, and to young people, is that they start aligning with truth. They start aligning with integrity. They start they are boosted in their confidence. They start trusting themselves. So what journalism does to them is something very deep. So I don't think journalism is just one technical skill they are learning. Journalism is also an art form. You are creating something. You're creating something. You are expressing. You're giving shape. You are giving order. You are giving beauty. Okay. So I see that, just asking, should just students be journalists? Why don't we say, should students be sports people, or should they be climate activists or artists or designers? Students should be journalists. They are journalists. We all want to be. No doubt it's risky, but so is life. And I think what students, when we give them this scope through our newsletters and our magazines in schools, we give them this chance to speak the truth, to be concise, to be correct, to be honest. It boosts it. They learn how to be clarity. They learn what is integrity, and they know that they are answerable to this community. As I think Tane pointed out, this whole link is clear. So this is a very big step, and I think For me as an educator, it has helped me also to understand what my students are going through. It has made me more sensitive. So it's both ways. Okay, it works for the adults also, and it works for the students. So that is my take on it. Thank you.
Thank you for that, ma'am. So we've heard our opening statements from all our 6 panelists, and I'm officially going to start the barrage of questions. And I'm going to do that by just setting the tone and asking our student panelists to tell us. So Vaidehi Prakash, this question is for you. Why did you decide to become a student journalist? And um, I'm going to go with Prakash this time, Vaidehi, because I think starting first for you, let's delay it a little bit. So Prakash, tell us, why did you want to become a student journalist?
I think actually I'm from a rural India. So my idea is little contextualized with the my surrounding and my around. So in our school, we one day first session was engaged with the People's Archive of Rural India session, where they tell us to write stories around for the Pari, and I did this, and after that. Uh, the story got published, and uh, also before this we also made it the movie film on Gujars community around us. So I think uh, I learned that through this whole process, by being a journalist students, I think we can learn more practically through experiences by working on ground by research, and this is very interesting than classroom, because this process of research would, I think, enhance the ability of students of curiosity, like, right? So in this process of completing a story, I try to encourage my research person, right, for doing a story on them and to agree them for the story. Like I did a story on a person who migrated after the Bangladesh division is Pakistan and West Pakistan, and it got published in Pari. So a Bengali person was my research person, and by the process of making their consents to write story or agree them for the story, I think reporters like me try to respect their beliefs and opinions, so without disturbing them continuously. It will ultimately build a relation with them through a story, right? So I think and community is very learning, like our different mentors always encourage us to work with community. So I think my idea about journalism is related to the community and connected strongly with the community. So yeah, so after this we also got appreciations from teachers and others, and this made us to think that I am in right way. So I think I should be engaged in such activities. Yeah, so through this process of this journey, I think I got involved in journalism, and listening the stories what is happening around us was very interesting for me, and right now it's also interesting. So I think that's why I joined this journey, or I was a part of this journey, and right now I'm interested in this process. Yeah, so I'm also I can use my arts of filmmaking to document any story. So here my my interest is also coming. So uh, yeah, this is that's why I'm able to pursue the journalism as my interest or hobby.
Thank you, Prakash. Over to you, Vaidehi. You'd already raised a hand, but go ahead. Tell us, why did you want to become a student journalist?
Growing up, I'm still growing up, but um, when I was like in my early years, I like to ask questions. My parents always encouraged me to ask questions. My teachers always encouraged me to ask questions. So they were just like, you doubt something, you ask a question. You are curious about something, you ask a question. So it was like that, and slowly I was completely new to this when I first joined as an intern at YN. I was like completely new, but as I finished the internship once, and I was like okay, this happens in journalism. Then in the second round, I got to delve deeper into journalism, and I found that I really like it. And I think that I knew that journalism would like basically imbibe some values in me, like I said in my opening statement. And also, I used to be very shy, and I thought that maybe through journalism, I could like interview different people and get to know many amazing things that people have done. So I think that would be a really good idea to try and open up my personality, basically. So I think that's why I joined the team, and also became a student journalist, because I think that I could really, you know, kind of open up myself and in to new experiences, and basically enhance all the skills that I have and add new skills to my country. So.
Thank you, Vedi. My second question is, I think, specifically directed to the journalists, but I would also love to hear responses from the other panelists as well. And I'm sure this is a cliche question that you get asked all the time now. But India's rank on the World Press Freedom Index is 150 out of the 180 countries surveyed. And we've seen that journalists are, often denied the freedom to talk about issues that are actually taking place in the country. What do you think this means for journalism as a profession, and also for students who want to take up journalism as a profession? Neera, Tanay, I would invite either of you to tell us your thoughts, and then we can hear from other panelists as well.
Tanay, would you like to go ahead? And
Okay. Yes. So, of course, the reports about India's ranking are scary, but and that's also the truth. But the thing is that journalism was never meant to be easy, and even when students do something, say if there's a community newspaper which students are writing for, even they can face repercussions, right? That risk is always there. So that grit that you need to be a journalist is undeniable, whether you're a student journalist or an adult journalist. That any figure of authority, whether if just think of a classroom. If there's a classroom newspaper and students are angry about just a very small example, like angry about a teacher, and they just write about it, the teacher will try to suppress it, right? So that kind of suppression is always going to come from figures of authority who will not want the truth to go out. So the risk is ever present, and student journalists, they that value, the imbibing of the values that Vedi was talking about. Grit is the like a primary skill to be a good journalist, and we have to just face that. And whether times are changing or not, that's a secondary thing. The primary thing is that skill has to always be there, whoever is in power.
Hi. This is something I've said before. Journalism is not the only profession with a risk, right? If you're a doctor, if you're an engineer, if you're a dancer, everything comes with risks of their own. Journalism is just one of them. It's just very visible because we are writing the news every day, right? But even the issues that do get suppressed, somebody did speak about them, and that's how you know that issue is being suppressed, because somebody did write about it, did speak about it. If this was a completely censored country, I wouldn't be here, then I wouldn't be here. We would have different jobs. Our job is to write the truth in any environment, right? And make sure that the unpleasant ones also get published. Of course, there is no right way of writing the truth. And I keep saying that there are multiple truths available. And the more of us become journalists, the more truths you see, right? Because I will inherently have a bias when I write, and I will have a bias when he writes, and maybe whether he will come and tell us that you've both got the story wrong because you are too biased in your ways. And that's something with any profession. Any profession can be scary if you do it with integrity, right? There are risks to it all. So it's not one profession that's scary. Of course, every once in a while you'll hear that it's a tough job in the environment that we are in and the time we are in. But which time wasn't tough, right? I don't remember a glorious period where multiple truths didn't attack each other. So the more you ask questions, the different perspectives you get, and our job is to do that job. Thanks.
Thank you for that, Neera. Are there any other panelists that would like to respond to this question? Give us your thoughts on it. If not, I have other questions lined up, which I will move to. No worries. Wow, I feel like I have to carry forward the structure here as well. So yes, Grace, ma'am, please.
Okay, I'll just like to add, you know, when you talk of fear and risk, when I ask my boys, you know, what is your fear and risk? And, you know, what is it when you want to express yourself or write something? They say the biggest fear they have is of their own peers. You know, in a school setting, it's not maybe, you know, a life and death situation, but there is this whole peer pressure. And I don't know if the young people here would agree, but they feel they would be ridiculed. Okay, if they write something, how will their own peers take them? You know, what have you written, this and that? So they have this little thing going on with them. And also, you know, whether people will really take them seriously. So here I think the biggest support that, you know, we can give to student journalists is our, you know, our wisdom, maybe our knowledge, our helping them to discern what is correct, and, you know, how to write properly and analyze every situation, the support that they can get from the people who are in the team, who are elders and mentors or educators. And I think it starts there at this basic level in school. And then when you reach this profession, like when you reach the stage of Tane and Neera, when you go out, you get it in you, the values, you know, that grit which you are talking about. So thanks for bringing in those elements. It helped me also to clarify my stance in a school setting. Thank you.
Hi. So I'm thinking about this, the statistic that you have shared, something that we shared in our grade 7th class when I was teaching them humanities, and then the implication of it. The point is that I guess we don't have to look at it as such a something like, you know, one kind of career. I guess it should be more like the way of life. You know what I mean? So kids learning how to write, how to express themselves, or even in the future being able to be, you know, create a profession out of it, it's still a really long route. And as we grow older, we also see there's a lot of, like, in curriculum also so much of interdisciplinary study. So I don't think you can even be a scientist these days without an understanding of the humanities, or a data engineer without, like what Tane does. He does data as well as I guess as well as journalism. But there is so much of cross I would say connection happening between streams, and I think that's something kids need to understand and recognize, that without the understanding of the humanities, without being able to understand how to write and express the reality of the world around them, they might in the future exist in those silos where they would not be able to understand the implication of, okay, this is the statistic, this is where our country is, what does that mean to me? So right, so I think it's still a really long route for them, but I think the hope is there as there is more interdisciplinarity and more disciplines coming together, and creating a newer meaning in the world. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I'm going to move on to my next question, and it starts with a little bit of a situation. Let's say that student journalists are, you know, encouraged to write, encouraged to create, encouraged to run their own publications. Do you think they should have the freedom to talk about what they want to talk about issues that they see around them, to talk about issues that they face? And this is a question that's open to all panelists. So please feel free to bring in your insights from your respective careers to answer this question. But do you think students should have the freedom to talk about the issues they face and write about them. We can have any one panelist start us off. Yes, Neera.
Of course, but the same rules follow though. Is it an opinion piece or is it a news piece that you're writing? If it's a news piece, you need to ask around. You need to talk to your classmates. Hey, did you feel this? Did you talk to your teacher about it? If it's an opinion piece, of course, write what's affecting you. There's like the same rules of journalism affect everything we write or do, right? You have to then decide what you're writing. Is it something that I have faced? Is it something everybody is facing? Do I need to talk then to others? So yeah, you should be able to write about, and you don't need to bother with if it's a big issue or a small issue. You need to have the conviction to write about it and then decide how you want to write about it.
I'll go next.
No, Tanay, you go next.
Sorry, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, of course. So students should have the freedom to write about the issues that they care about and they are facing, because that is the like starting point of being a journalist. But also important is the idea that, you know, this it's not just about the basic skills of journalism and the principles of journalism which Neera was talking about. At a young age, they also need to be developed not as journalistic skills, but basic reasoning skills. Like to reach a particular opinion, you need to like investigate. That investigation needs to be to take into account all kinds of points of view, and that is the basic hygiene of any research, writing, reporting, even like understanding of a particular of any situation, right? So that is something that like students should be encouraged to do, like all like educators like Grace ma'am and Afira have also been working on. Meanwhile, there also needs to be good feedback and a mentorship at that age to ensure that the students are being able to do that in a complete manner, being able to assess issues holistically and whether they are looking at looking at all points of view with fairness and objectivity. That kind of feedback needs to be there, and once that is there, I think like students should of course be allowed to have the first say.
So I loved what Neera and Tanay said, and I can see that there's a lot of wisdom here. When kids talk about issues, sometimes we are very charmed by the way they talk, right? Without actually recognizing at times that some of the stuff might be a little heavy for them, right? So to me, it's all about how do they investigate rather than what they're producing in the end. So for example, if they live in a world and they are looking to understand it, their approach towards it is very important. What Prakash said, he wrote something about a refugee, I guess, who was living in India, right? As a result of the 1970 war. So, you know, that kind of an awareness, something that's very, I guess, what would a person's, you know, week look like, or what kind of, you know, hopes and aspiration do they have for the future? So something I would say like on the lines of, I guess, like dreams and hopes. So what I'm trying to say here is, it's a great idea for kids to write whatever they want to, but it's also equally important to, in a way, I won't say restrict, but to ask them the question, to what extent do you want to engage with it? And once they are having some idea about the issue, it's also an equally important, I think, approach to give them the tools. And when I say tools, something as simple as a brainstorm map or a source evaluation worksheet, those things that they are needed, because the kids in the end, they should be feeling, they should feel empowered. That's what I'm trying to say. At a young age, a child should feel empowered that we have, investigated, we came up with the truth, and I would like to know more, rather than feeling like, oh, this is the biggest issue in the world and I can't do anything about it. So I think that's a very, very important approach to have when it comes to, teaching kids how to be journalists, how to be journalist.
I would also just like to add one or two lines to all that has been shared, which is amazing. And thanks for all those insights. And when I asked my, boys about it and, what they have learned, and two words came from them, which I want to share. One is balance, and second is courage. So when we say freedom, when we are talking about freedom for student journalists, if we can have these two things, balance as well as courage, and teach them how to maintain them, just like Afira just mentioned, giving them the tools, giving them the support, as Tane and Neera mentioned, the mentorship, both of this will go hand in hand. Because any kind of freedom you give also has consequences. So keeping all that in mind, I think just to teach them to balance it and also to have courage. And certainly they should be free to express themselves in ways which are in sync, with the what is also. We need to know, why are we having this kind of a newsletter or a news desk in a school? What is our motive? What is the effect or the impact we want to have on the community? Why are we writing what we are writing? So if it is just, it's not just information, it's also the main aim is transformation. So with all that in mind, I think if we just can see this balance and courage, dynamics, I think it will go well.
May I ask a related question to Prakash? Prakash, when you're choosing your stories, how do you go about it? Like, I'm really inspired that you work for Pari at such a young age.
Yeah, so uh, uh, looking story is something that is looking the situation in our society. So firstly, when sometimes I write to stories for different platforms, so I mainly look for the relevancy, and but instead of this, I also looks through the eyes of, like, which are the stories that is remaining invisible. Yeah, that is unique, but that need to be in front. People wants to say, but they have no platform. So I am like a little I'm making a platform, or I'm becoming a medium to raise their voices. Yeah, so something like this is like I used to choose the story, and through the consents of their opinion. And I think, yes, we should talk about the issues if the suppressed wants the solution. And as a student, I think we should talk about the issues to be a leader, but without authority. Voicing others is leadership for others, right? So I think this is something that is that's why I'm writing the story. And when kids will talk about the issues, they will be able to survive in the world that can't be remain with invisible issues. Yeah, so I think this is reason, but I'm little blurred with the ideas or this. Yeah,
Leader without authority, I'm going to take that away, like, as the
Yeah.
good phrasing. Like, loved it.
Okay. I think I have just one concluding question, and after that, I think we can open to questions from the audience. And this is a variation of the same question directed at the specific panelists, because I'm devious that way. But to the journalists, I want to ask, what do you think student journalists can bring to media? Do you think they can bring a fresh perspective, or maybe even a way to reimagine what it currently looks like?
Of course, I also mentioned in my opening statement that students can bring sort of blank slate approach to the understanding of the world, which older journalists like who start their career in their 20s, who have much stronger views about the world, may not be able to do it well. They also bring a much cleaner version of integrity and grit, which can make adult journalists question their own practices and habits, and show them the mirror. So I think it's a great thing, and also because journalists are often constrained in reporting issues from communities which won't sell, as I like they won't get the ads or the views on websites. So bringing those issues to the fore is also journalist's job. So it like students' involvement in that practice as citizen journalists, student journalists, that also brings those issues to the fore, and helps journalism do what it is unable to do. That would be my answer.
I think student journalists are disruptors in a good way. We are all really set in our ways, but whatever profession you do, you're really set in your ways until someone comes and says, hey, this issue matters to me and I think it should be written, which is what happens in a newsroom also. When we had interns with us, they were speaking about issues that we weren't speaking about, and we were too set in our ways that, election should be covered in this way or something should be covered in that way. And because I deal a lot with climate change news, that force of needing to write about that issue comes from young people, because it's the young people who will be affected, right? And children these days are much more knowledgeable about these issues, so they ask the questions at the right times. We may be very jaded in what we do, but children do bring that sense of, hey, this is not gonna work, you need to write about it differently. Like I remember during the pandemic, we had interns, and one intern said, hey, why don't we write about chairs? All of us are working from home. The sale of chairs must have increased, like comfortable chairs. And that's not something we were thinking about. And we were like, okay, sure. Are you sure you want to write about that? And they went and did the story, and it was so widely read. So every generation changes your perspective a little bit. And like I said, there's no small or big issue, and that you are disruptors in a good way. Like the last time I was on News Didi, I was asked the most hardest questions ever that I wasn't prepared for at all. At Prakash's age, I wasn't doing much except watching TV. Like it's really inspiring to see that. And that makes me question, then what am I doing now? Why don't I have the same hunger to go out there and do something? And that's something very important that you guys can bring. And like you guys are actually changing the narrative, because in India, most news readers are now young news readers. You're changing how we write, what we write. So that's very important.
Thank you, Neera. To the educators, I have a question. Do you think student journalists have any kind of potential to transform the way we look at writing or storytelling inside the classroom?
Sukriti, we have someone in the audience also. Also, Miss Ghosh has raised her hand. I think if we want, we can also go to her once Safira has spoken.
Sure, sure. Go ahead, Afira.
So we're talking about what can they bring, right? The transformation. I would say, as I think what Grace ma'am said a while ago, it's a good idea to know what our students are thinking for us to, I guess, evolve as teachers, or to understand that young people also think the way we do. And when Neera was talking about that, for example, the climate change movement, a lot of push, it comes from the kids, right? Because they would be, we understand the statistic. So I think there is definitely a lot of potential for transformation that can happen, and it can impact the world around. But what I said before, at times we have this tendency of being charmed by what kids say, as because it's something new or completely, maybe the previous generation we would not have said something like that without recognizing the importance and relevance of that thought. So again, it depends on the ecosystem and how accepting people are when it comes to kids and the concerns they raise. And sure, there's a lot of power on when it comes to transformation, because now kids also 10th, 11th graders, they have access to social media. And if they have a serious, I guess, an opinion on something, they're very willing to share it, right? So there is already an audience, and which I believe it creates an impact on people.
Thank you. Grace, ma'am?
Yeah, just continuing the thought process of Apira, I would also say yes, a big yes, because young people listen to young people. I feel there's this whole concept of peer education, in our country, and they do listen, and somehow they are able to answer the questions of young people very amazingly, which I would not be able to do. So I would definitely say they have the power to impact change, to bring transformation. Surely they need guidance, they need mentoring, they need a plan, they need help, all that. But at the same time, again, they need the boost and the trust and this confidence that they can, and they have impacted change. And I think it is a real big boost to the community when they can be the ones doing the talking and doing the impacting and writing and speaking up. But believe me, I really don't have many answers which my groups of students would have to the young people, out here or in the classrooms. So I think yes, a big yes. Thank you, Sukriti.
Ms. Ghosh, you raised your hand at this question. Would you like to take a shot at it?
Yeah, though the hand went up by mistake, but I would like to say something. I teach English to the senior school, and I feel that we do need student journalists. The reason is that we as adults, we become complacent. We accept whatever is given to us, whatever we are told, we accept it. It is the students who bring in a fresh perspective. They're curious, they ask different questions and they want answers. And also, like Neera said, that we have become jaded and we've lost our idealism. I think this is the time when news has become so lopsided that we need the kind of idealism and that the student journalist would bring in. So my perspective is, yes, students should be journalists so that we get a fresh and free perspective on news as it is now. Thank you.
Thank you for that, ma'am. Vaidehi and Prakash, I think my question to you is great, but I have another question from the audience that I think would definitely suit much better. And I think Deepa ma'am has asked this question.
Yes.
And she said that there are many students who have a very strong self-opinion on current issues, but they fail to put forth their points in front of an audience. And sometimes it may be for the fear of being judged. So how do you inspire such students to come forth and fearlessly express their opinion in writing a new report or a newsletter? And Vaidehi and Prakash, I think you all are perfectly pitched to answer this because you are writing for students, right? So how would you inspire somebody who's finding it difficult to raise their voice and talk about issues?
I think that yes, that we should be inspired. Adults, so I agree with you that students sometimes can be scared that, oh my God, who's going to judge me? Who's going to do this? Because always they this is a personal thing that we always like are a little bit scared of what people think of us, and because we're learning, we're growing, we don't know that we so yeah. uh, and I think that the way that we could inspire students is to just say that bas bindas bolo beta, bindas bolo. So or uh they really shouldn't care about what other people say negatively about us, because and we should care in a way as well, because everything negative that comes to us is basically a feedback. So we should take that into account as well. But if that if what if you have a fear of being judged, um, you shouldn't have that fear, because everything that people say, negative or positive, is a learning, and you should be able to accept that.
Prakash, would you like to take a shot at this question?
Yeah, so I want to share that I was doing that Bengali story. Then when it got published in the website, Pari website, so also people helped them. The narrator of the story, Maninder Mazumdar, through financial support. So this was the impact, right? People help from around the world, when around India, when they shared in the website. So people help financially to them, their family. So this was the impact. So I think by showing the impact, what may I think if I'll talk about myself, I think in field of journalism, I realized that if we are doing a story on Shah Rukh Khan and also a labor from a village, so it's our role to respect both of them, right? And I think through student journalism, who mainly learn about the constitutional values in the classroom, so it is possible that they might implement these values on the ground in the work. Yeah, so I think they can teach others for this cause also. So same here is with me. Also, if I'll talk about my class, people didn't like to be a follower, right? Didn't like to be a follower, but they want others to follow us. So if I'll and as we can see the trend, media is engaged in following someone, but the duty of journalist is not to be as a work like a follower, but to transfer the things, actual things, without losing the authenticity to others, right? So if I'll talk about my class, so they want that um, they want their articles should be published in different websites. So I provide these platforms to them, and also I shows the impact, how by working on the ground, how it can impact. Like when my film got selected for film festivals, Patna Film Festival and Udaipur Film Festival, more students from my class got motivated, also tried to make movie on film on a Diwali fair in Nanangmatta city. Yeah, and they tried to make the film. And one group is also tried to make movie on Gurdwara committee. So yeah, this was the impact. So I think they can change. They can be a journalist. They can by showing, by looking for the impact, how the examples, how working on these issues will result into a uh, positive manner. Yeah, so I think for this.
Can I add something? I think the onus lies a lot more on adults around the children than the children themselves. As Afida has pointed out a couple of times, children in our culture are like tuned to, a program to charm adults. And if as adults we stop doing that, stop infantilizing children, children will have things to say, and they will not fear being judged. So I mean, as long as that kind of thinking exists, where we want students to just entertain us, children to just entertain us and charm us, they might be apprehensive to share their thoughts when they feel that it won't have that kind of impact. But if it's the opposite, if children can speak themselves out, they will, and they won't feel judged.
On a side note, I'm just writing down whatever Prakash and Vaidhi are saying. It's too intelligent. I'm like, your line about respecting Shah Rukh Khan, whom I love very much, and the laborer whose story you're doing, it's really good.
Very profound.
Thank you. I think because we are just over time now, we'll begin to close. And so if any of the panelists would like to end with some words of wisdom, and words of wisdom can come from a fifth grader just as much as they can come from a teacher or a journalist. So any words of wisdom for all our attendees today that you would like to leave them with? Bolo beta bindas bolo to is my word of wisdom that I'm taking away for a lifetime now. But yes, Vaidehi, other words of wisdom.
Okay, so this is just I'll just close with this short thing that I have prepared. So I'm talking right now about the power of student journalism. So we as students are better able to understand the challenges and the issues that concern young people, and so we can represent their points of view better, perhaps. And may I add that India is a very young country, and sometimes the views of young people are not as well represented in mainstream media as perhaps they should be given our population. So students journalism's real power lies in better articulating our aspirations.
Thank you for that, Vaidehi. Anybody else wants to follow that?
I guess she said, she has filled me with so much of optimism, when I struggle. I mean, we struggle a lot as adults, I guess. And Vaidehi, thank you so much for sharing that India is a young country. Yes, we are fairly a very young country, and that means we have a really long road ahead of us. And there's a lot of power in student agency, and I believe in that. Thank you.
Any other panelists with other words of wisdom?
It will fall short in front of Vaidehi and Prakash.
I just want to say, keep raising your hands, no matter what stage of life you're in, keep raising your hands.
Yeah, I think on that note, Asmita, I'm going to hand it over to you. Sit back for the remainder of this meeting and let you close us out.
Thank you, Sukriti. And I'll just start by thanking everybody on the panel for being here. I was in complete awe of everything that was said, of course, by both of the students here on this panel, but also the educators and both the journalists here. I think there's a lot of learning that I'm taking back that hopefully we can put into the work that we do at Vaya News Didi. And if I could just share one thing before I officially close out, it would be that I think today has been one of those forums for me where I have personally, for the first time, felt very, very proud of what we are trying to do. Sukriti and I work on this with a lot of skepticism and a lot of self-doubt. But I think hearing the voices in this room, I think it's given me a lot of hope and inspiration to keep working really, really hard to ensure more and more student voices are heard. I think that's possibly one of the biggest ways to inspire more students to write and speak up. Just see examples of students like Vaidehi and Prakash, and see an example of all of you here who are supporting student journalists like them, and saying how there's so much to be learned from them. I think those are things that can hugely inspire more and more students to write and raise their voice. So extremely, extremely grateful to all of you for being here and so candidly sharing what you truly feel and believe. I hope that we can create more and more of these spaces where as Sukriti has very rightly articulated, where students and adults and teachers and journalists and parents can come together and speak as equals. And we are very, very glad that this started off the way it did. So thank you so very much for joining us today. And to everybody who attended the event, I hope that you all had a good time and that you learned something from today's event. If nothing else, that we gave you something to think about. I'm just dropping a link to a short feedback form in the chat so that you can help us improve upon this experience that we're trying to curate for you. Please do fill it. It will take you no longer than a minute. And that's it from us. We will be hosting another space like this next month. So please do keep an eye out for that. You will find all of the information on our social media handles and on our website, which is www.vianewsdd.com. I will invite everybody to go take a look at it and the work that we're doing. And we're always very, very open to receiving feedback on how we can do this better. We have a very long road ahead of us and we're very, very open to learning. So please feel free to be as critical and candid in your feedback as you would like to. Thank you very, very much for joining us on a Sunday. And I hope that the rest of your Sunday is relaxed, but gives you some time to think about everything that we spoke about today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Asmita. All the best.
Thank you. Thank you, Tanay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
Thank
More
you.
power to you, Asmita and Sukriti and the team. And very nice to meet you all here, my panelists, especially the youngsters. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Wonderful listening to you all. Wonderful.
Thanks.